Hello there. Welcome back to the Sky Guys podcast. We are going now over season one of Ahsoka in full. All the episodes are out on Disney Plus. We cover them weekly on the podcast. Now we're going to take a big picture look at the show. I'm your host Mike Phillips. Joining me today, as always, first the man who's voice here in narration every single week, and the man who's voice here before mine every week. Pete Stories here. Pete, how are you?
Doing well. Weird that we didn't have to watch a episode of Ahsoka this week, and I think that's it's bittersweet, right? It's more bitter actually. I don't know. It was a great show, but I'm glad to talk with you guys about it, and excited to see what you guys thought about the season as a whole. And we'll get right to it here.
Yeah, I gotta say also, I mean, like last night at like 9 o'clock, I was like, click on Disney Plus. I'm like, wait, I don't have to. There's nothing on tonight.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. I was very thrown off.
Yep. Also here with us today, the the right hand man to Grand Admiral Thrawn, who's more helpful than Enoch. Nick Fred is here. Nick, how are you?
I'm doing well. I I'm a little upset as well. The show is over. My question is, I know Loki came out. Are they not doing the same nighttime release thing, or that no?
We're
That's
doing it on
still a 3
Thursdays.
a.m. It's 3
Thursday.
a.m. thing.
No, it's Thursdays at 9 o'clock.
That's at night.
Yes.
Oh, that's good at least. But yeah, there's an empty feeling on the Tuesday nights. I used to be excited for them, and now I'm not.
Yeah, well, we can be excited tonight here because we have a great guest with us here tonight to cover it all here. This is usually the traditional Mike Brescia spot, but Mike just got married, so congratulations to him. He is not here with us tonight, but we had this guy planned in here anyways. We have 5-person pod. Now it's just a 4. Nick D'Alessio is here from the recovery room. Nick, how are you?
I'm doing great. I also felt weird watching Loki instead of Ahsoka not having Star Wars content for a week, but yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. A lot of fun here. And Pete, people want to subscribe to us here. They can do so Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, Spotify, Amazon, all the usual suspects. Just search for the Sky Guys podcast platforms. We got a little bit of a wait before Skeleton Crew, but we have some fun in the offseason. Make sure you're hanging out with us by subscribing.
Yeah, I mean, this is the last in-season pod, right? I feel like all the next episodes are going to be something that you need to get if you're subscribed. So definitely subscribe so you're not missing out on all the fun content that we're giving you guys.
Yep. And Nick Freda, people want to follow us on the social media. How can they do that?
You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and TikTok.
Yep. And Nick D'Alessio. We also have the YouTube channel, Mike Phillips, on YouTube. Video version of the podcast is out there. We have all our fun graphics and props up here. And since she's the star of the season right now, Lego Ahsoka back again.
If you're not watching the video versions, you're missing out on all those graphics. That's the meat and potatoes of the show is the recaps and stuff, the trackers. So you're missing out.
Yep. And I'll mention here, as always, here that this podcast recorded during the 2023 SAG after strike. Without the labor of the actors covering that strike, we'd not be having a Ahsoka show to cover here. Hopefully, this is done soon. They're still talking about that one here. But Nick, let's get into some Star Wars news.
Sure.
As he beams in.
I beam in with I'm still a Force Ghost. I'll be a Force Ghost for the foreseeable future. I think it's a good touch. So in relation to the strikes, Ahsoka season 2 is in play, but they gotta wait till the strike is over here. Season 4 of Mando might go into production after the strikes as well. Maybe release that in 2025 or so, the spring of 2025. That is, sorry. And this I didn't know when I'm reading it for the first time here is that the Disney TV networks will now have the rights on the Star Wars movies to air them on their platforms like ABC, etc. I did not know that. That's interesting. And then lastly is there's a lot of like rumors going around on Twitter and whatnot that Skeleton Crew is going to drop in January. And I saw one specific tweet that gave the specific date, which was January 24th. Which I guess would be 23rd if they stick to that earlier 6-hour window. I'm not sure if they will, but I don't know. Let's see. I mean, if the rumors are right, looks like 3 months or so we'll be talking about a new show.
I think that sounds about right, though, Pete, because, I mean, like, we went about, like, 4.5 months between Mando and Ahsoka, and, like, they pushed Skeleton Crew back a little bit to account for the strike. So I think this makes sense.
It does. Obviously, we were kind of in limbo waiting to see what was going to happen with the writer's strike, but now that that's over, we're kind of just waiting on the actor's strike now, and I feel like, I think that's enough time to be able to release it properly.
All right, so that it for the news, Nick?
Yeah, before we move on, though, you show your props at the beginning of each episode, and I've shown props before too, and I have a really sad story to tell with my prop is that I have the Mace Windu Legacy lightsaber from Galaxy's Edge. Well, I guess it was, I mean, you could purchase it there, but really I purchased it on Disney's shop.com or Shop Disney. It doesn't work anymore. I turn it on, it's purple for half a second, and then it's red. So I guess Mace Windu's a Sith now.
You're bleeding the crystal every time you turn it on.
I guess I don't know what happened. I don't leave a blade in there. I just leave it on a display case kind of thing. And I just wanted to use it like the other day to see if it would work. I had some company over. I was showing them the lightsabers, and I was like, "Oh, let's see who can you guess whose one this is?" And then they're like, "No." And I'm like, "When I turn it on, you can guess." And it was red. And I go, "Wait, what?" So I'm a little upset.
All right, that would be a bit disappointing, Nick D. If like you were showing off your lightsaber and it's the wrong color.
Maybe it's red because of how upset you are. You need to channel your feelings better, and But yeah, that's hilarious.
All right, so Nick F. That's it for the news.
That is it for the news.
All right, let's get into general thoughts here. We've seen all 8 episodes of season 1. We've dived into detail on all of them here. So, Keith, kick us off. Your general thoughts on the season.
So it was fantastic. I said this in the beginning of the show, and I'll say it now. I think this is the best Star Wars show that Disney has put out, even over Mando. Again, probably a hot take. I'm sure I'll get a lot of flack for that. However, I enjoyed every minute of it. There were some low points that I will admit to. It wasn't a perfect show, but overall, loved it. Had me at the edge of my seat, and I'm still waiting for more, and I'm still very satisfied with it. So overall, fantastic show.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on the sense. I don't know if I'm that high yet. I like this is the best like live action show we've gotten yet in terms of like I think Mando has a good argument for us Andor in a different way, but I think the thing I like here is like self-contained story. Like we have room to continue if we want, but we did sell a complete story from beginning to end. Dave Filoni gets Star Wars the way that some of these creatives do not, which I think helps out the show a lot. And like as a big Rebels fan, I did love the continuation of the Rebel story, waiting 5 years to get the answer to the big question where Thrawn and Ezra went, and we got the answer, and we got some forward momentum on that plot. Nick D, what'd you feel like?
Yeah, I think I feel like for me, it's if we're talking about like the best live action Star Wars shows, I feel like it's either between this or maybe like something like Andor. But I think the difference between Andor is like I think Andor was just a really good show that happened to be in the Star Wars universe. This was like Ahsoka was like what I said at the start of it, what I wanted. I wanted some like Star Wars Star Wars, and like we got it. We got the temples, we got all the crazy things that Star Wars can go a little off the rails with, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Nick F, your thoughts?
I thought it was fantastic. It wasn't. I don't think it was 10 out of 10 material. I don't think it was perfect, but I loved it. I thought it was great. I think it's in the conversation for one of the best live actions. I think Andor has it beat, and then I think Mando, possibly season two, and then possibly season one have it beat, but it's right up there, and I thought it was a fantastic show. I really think they set up well for the future. I think we all know what's coming now, or we've known, but now it's confirming our theories, and yeah, we're ready to get moving in this Mandoverse.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go into some of the characters here from this season here. So, Nick D, like we get Ahsoka, the main character of the show here. We've got her in bits and pieces in live action for Mando season 2. She's in Boba Fett for like 30 seconds and she's gone. And then we got to get our history from the animated shows with Clone Wars and Rebels. How do you feel like Ahsoka's character grew over the course of the season?
I liked it. I think that if you're coming off of the animated shows, there's a lot of unresolved things with Ahsoka. Like, we don't need to go into all the unresolved things, but it was nice to see them finally like sit down and be like, here you are, Ahsoka. Like, we're going to finally sort through some of this stuff. We're finally going to have your confrontation with Anakin. We're finally going to have you come to terms with your failure to train and how to properly do this with Sabine. And I think Ahsoka, you don't really get a lot of that previously. So I think they handled that aspect of it well as far as her character growth. I wish that Ahsoka was a little bit more... I don't know if this is Rosario Dawson or Filoni's directing, or I feel like I kind of wanted her to be just a little bit more animated, for lack of a better term. She's very, very monotone, very but I guess that's part of her character to be kind of at peace. But it was really cool, especially the whole her and Anakin thing. I think that was just amazing to see that in live action, and I think they handled her character growth pretty well.
Nick F, what do you think?
I don't like when this happens. When you go to somebody, in this case Nick D, and he tells everything that I'm going to say, and then I have to try to make something up. So
My bad.
I'm just going to say I agree.
All right, Pete, anything you want to add?
So I hate when this happened. Okay. Yeah, pretty much the same as both Nicks. I agree 100%. I really don't have anything to add.
Yeah, I think one thing I'll add here, I think in terms of like Nick D's point about like Rosario Dawson, the character sort of being kind of zen and sort of like, like not very emotionally like resonant and whatnot. I feel like that does change a bit after she goes in the World Between Worlds. Because I feel like after that point, it's like when she really starts like living life and more, you see a little more pep in her step. I do think that change happened. I think that's where the real growth comes, because at that point, especially when you see it visually in her wardrobe, she goes from the gray to the white. I think that does make a big difference, Pete.
I mean, for sure. I think that's probably the biggest character development moment for Ahsoka. And you're right. It's not a huge difference. I'm not going to say she goes from being monotone to super animated like maybe, most people wanted. However, there is a change. You can definitely see that. So I like I said, I think that's the biggest character development moment for Ahsoka.
Yep. Let's go to Sabine now, or who is our second main character of the show. Obviously, pick her up after her time in Rebels. She found out that she's been hanging out on Lothal after Ahsoka takes her on as her apprentice. They try and go search for Ezra. Find out in the finale, Ahsoka cut her off after the siege of Mandalore because she didn't want Sabine training for the wrong reasons. They reunite here, and Sabine makes some choices here and grows as a Jedi. Nick F, how do you feel about what they did with Sabine in this show?
I don't have any issues with it. I think it was a little bit rushed in the end of the finale on her ability to use the Force so well. Nothing like I don't think there's any issue with her being able to use the Force just as strongly as she was. But the one thing I noticed about Sabine throughout the show was it seemed like throughout the show she just continued to mess up and never really faced any legit consequences for her actions. I guess you could say, well, she's stranded in another galaxy. That's a pretty big consequence for her actions. But she did a lot wrong in the show and is still walking to talk about it.
Yeah, Pete, you want to add anything on that front with Sabine here?
It's hard to disagree with Nick F. I think that he's 100% right, that there's a lot of non-consequential things that happen to Sabine. However, I think this happens a lot with younger characters, or at least characters that are being trained, or characters that are Padawans, or even in general. It always seems like if you're learning, it's okay to fail. And I think I don't know if that's so much the message they're trying to send, but I feel like I see that a lot. So I'm not surprised. But I do agree with Nick. There was not a lot of consequential stuff that happens to Sabine.
Yeah, Nick D. I know we have not talked to you like since episode 3 when Sabine was not even trying to get the cup off the table pretty much here. Like, did Sabine's Jedi like ability to learn the Force the embody like it did some on the internet?
Sorry, it got cut out again. Can you just repeat that question?
Yeah, I'd say in terms of Sabine learning to use the Force. I know I haven't talked to you since week 3 when she hadn't even gotten far enough to move the cup. And at the end of the show, she's picked up her lightsaber. She's pushing Ezra with the Force here. So, like, did it bother you, like it bothered something on the internet, how quickly Sabine seemed to pick it up once she got that first Force use under her belt?
A little bit. I think I like the scene where she can pick up the lightsaber. That felt like this is a life or death kind of situation. And, it's the first thing. I mean, you go back to original trilogy, the first thing that Luke was able to do was pick up a lightsaber, so like it would make sense that that's the thing. Her just being like, Ezra, jump, I'm gonna push you. That I was like, I don't know. I also think of controversial Sabine things. I know I don't. I like the decision she makes to give up the thing to find out where everybody is. I don't like the decision personally, but I think it makes sense for her character because, I mean, her whole family, you find out, gets killed. All of her people get killed. Now Ahsoka, one of the only people left that she has, she thinks might be dead. So it would make sense that she's like, well, I have nothing left except for maybe Ezra. So I know the internet was hot on, oh, Sabine turning on them, but I think that decision makes sense in a way, you know?
I agree. If you remember, not counting the recordings, Ezra's last words to Sabine were, "I'm counting on you to find me."
Yep.
Something along those lines. Are counting on you to come get me. I don't remember the
Yeah.
exact line, but Mike, do you know it?
Yeah, I think something I'm counting on, like Sabine, I'm counting on you to bring me home or something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, she definitely trusted and respected Ezra a great deal. So I'm not surprised that she did that.
Yeah, and I'll throw a counterpoint out to the argument on the internet. Oh, Sabine shouldn't be able to pull with the force as fast as she is. Like, I'll say this, Pete. I basically trained on and off for a period of at least a couple of years here. Whereas in the Force Awakens, for example, Rey is doing Jedi mind tricks, like just like like on a whim and getting successful with it. So I don't see the big complaint. I feel like that's more complicated to manipulate someone's mind than pushing somebody across a gap.
Yeah, I mean, the timeline of it. I mean, we discussed this too in the finale show. I think that it makes sense to have a gripe, and like I had mentioned, if we're gonna be critical of Rey's character, we should be critical of Sabine's. But like you said, and I may have now articulated this the best in our last episode. She's been training for a lot longer, so it makes more sense that this is the capability of Sabine versus if you're looking at a character like Rey, where the training period is not that long, right? So I agree with you.
All right, let's go on to the big reveal here of Grand Admiral Thrawn makes his live action debut with Lars Mikkelsen back playing him. The internet was joking about how he gained the Peridian 15 because he's not a twig like Thrawn is in the cartoons. But in terms of his arrival, Pete, and what he brought to the show, what did you think about Thrawn?
I loved his character. I love Thrawn as an animated character, and I think bringing back the voice actor to embody a live action Thrawn was perfect. For the people that had their views about his appearance in live action versus animation, look at Count Dooku in animation versus live action, right? I mean, you can't get any more severe different than that. And I don't really see any pushback about that. But I thought the character was great. Again, not perfectly executed. There was one moment in the last episode where Nick F had made some good points about how he wasn't as sharp as he was, let's say, in the animated series, but still loved the character. Thought it was a perfect villain.
Yeah, Nick D. I think in terms of Thrawn, another thing I liked here is that they did a good job showing not only how like smart he is tactically and how like 5 steps ahead of the group he can be as he is when they're trying to counter him on Peridia. They also love the fact that like he shows you why like these stormtroopers have been with him for a decade are still loyal to him to that point, especially that one scene with Enoch right after the finale. It's like, oh, these pilots died. Make sure we give them a commendation for their sacrifice. He's talking to his men, saying like, I'll make sure that they understand what they signed up for before they agree to do this mission. So I think like stuff like that really flushes thrown out is like why people are so loyal to him and how dangerous he can be.
Right? Like they those stormtroopers were kind of stuck there with him, so they didn't really have much of a choice. But that being said, there's just something about his presence that he commands like respect out of everybody. And you have those people, the blind loyalty to the Empire people, but it feels like with Thrawn, they are more. It's easy to want to follow him. He's such an interesting person. He's so good at bringing you in, making you feel like you're a part of something, like you're special, but like you got to be careful, and you have to always be on your toes. And I just love that about him. I'm glad they brought in the original voice actor because I think if it looked more like the animated Thrawn but didn't convey that right emotion, it wouldn't have felt right. So, Thrawn was, I think, one of the higher points for the show for me, for sure.
Nick F., you want to round out the Thrawn discussion?
I don't have much to add. I think I think it was a great character. He definitely showed why he's so feared and also respected by his men, and in such a short time too. He was only in 3 episodes, and I think it came across very clear. I think he made a very strong impression in the 3 episodes that he was in, that people are willing to accept him as the main villain of Star Wars in the foreseeable future. So great job to him. Great job on the acting as well. I agree with Nick on that point. that it was the right person for the. Obviously, we did the voice already. It's like it wasn't like there was much of a search, probably, but that was the right idea to bring the voice over. It seems like they've done that a couple times now with Bo-Katan. Anyone else I'm missing that they did that with?
They did for like some of the aliens that they actually had them keep the voices. I know like Cad Bane, the voice actor, did him too. You know, it was a physical, some portrayed by physically.
Yeah, and then I guess
Wasn't there that guy in Lethal too, who was
I
one of
guess
the original
Zeb.
people?
Yeah. Clancy Brown's Ryder Rosati's back.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Okay, so a few. I guess Zeb as well, and yeah, the list probably goes on. But good character, and honestly, I feel like me and you were on a little bit of a disagreement on this part, Mike. But I feel if this show is more of a set me up for what's next, I think you think of it more as a complete story in its own. And I don't not that I have a problem with it, but I don't see it that way. But I'm excited to see what comes next.
Yeah, I think they had a hard job here too, Pete. In terms of like, if this could be our big villain of like the next like couple of like seasons of television and the movie, and like they're trying to introduce him to an audience who like the animated people know who he is, know what a big deal is. It's the live action people who don't have time to watch 4 seasons of Rebels. Getting 3 episodes to convey who he is, what he's about, and how like intimidating / terrifying he can be. I think they did pretty good for the limited time they used him.
I think they did okay. I tell a lot of people that watch this show that have not watched Clone Wars or Rebels to take it with a grain of salt and to give it some time and ask me any questions or listen to our podcast if they have any questions about Rebels and Clone Wars, because this show is very tailored toward the fans that have watched these animated series. That being said, I think they did a good job at least getting the live action only fans, let's call them, acclimated quickly to what the storyline is and who these characters are. I think Thrawn doesn't have the appeal that he does to doesn't have the appeal to live action fans that he does to us. I say, if you know, I don't know if you know anyone that is just a live action fan. I have a couple that I can ask too. Maybe, you know, probably should have asked before this, but I'm sure they see that Thrawn's this tactical guy, but I don't know if they're actually convinced of how powerful he is. I think we just know that.
I've gotten the opposite in my circles with the people that I've spoken to who are only live action people. They're fully on board with this guy.
All right, so there you go. So I stand corrected. But yeah, I mean, I think I mean, let's just say based on what Nick F is saying, then yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah, Nick F, your brother in that conversation. I know, like, if you hadn't done that, I would have to ask you, like,
Yes.
I have to text him and ask his opinion on Thrawn.
He is.
Yeah. All right,
He
he's
is
on
one
board
of
Thrawn.
those.
And he's on
Fully
board.
on board. Fully on board with Thrawn.
All right, very nice. Yeah, let's go around the horn, like, get some of these other Rebels people who we got into live action for extensive time here. So, Nick D, how did they do with Hera?
I think that the character Hera was written perfectly, and I think all the stuff that she did, the whole Hera's trial and her kind of going rogue and doing her own thing, I think all of that was like exactly what you would expect out of Hera. I wasn't crazy about the actress they chose to play Hera. I don't know. I don't know if it was the
Look.
the look. Yeah, just something about it just didn't feel right, and it was hard for me to get past that. Also, I don't know if you guys saw God, what's the name of that movie with I can't remember. I'm not going to dwell on it, but I kept seeing her face in it instead of Hera. You know what I mean? But as far as the character, like if you're talking about just on paper, the script, the character, the plot, I really liked what they did with Hera. I just wasn't crazy about the actress.
Nick F, did the casting of Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Hera bother you? Did it not fit in your opinion?
It didn't bother me, but I completely agree with Nick that something looked off a little bit. Maybe I don't know what it was that was off, but I completely agree with Nick that it just felt off, but her actions and the way that she portrayed the character was great. Maybe it was just a look itself that just wasn't there. I'm not sure. Maybe it could have just been that she looks significantly older than Hera does in animation, but then again, we are how many years in the future? About 10 years in the future, so it does kind of make sense. I expect her to look a little bit different. That's all.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up the age of the character comparison to the actors here. So, Pete, while I do that, you want to add anything on Hera?
I think it was I don't know what the body part's called. I'm gonna call them ears. I'm sorry, everyone. That's gonna
The hair?
the hair, ears.
I don't know.
I
We'll
don't
call
know.
it the hair. I'm fine with that. She's supposed to
Sure,
be
I let
38.
the internet roast me about it, but
The
it looks
Hera.
very.
The
There
tendrils.
you go. Yes, see, that's good. I like that. So the hair, no. So I think that's what kind of messed up. I think it was very. It looked fake. I think the way it moved was very like she was wearing a headpiece and it wasn't part of her actual head. And I think that's just a product of they used the budget for something else, right? I mean, they actually obviously had to have a budget for a character Hera, but it wasn't as high as Ahsoka. It wasn't as high as Sabine's armor, probably. It wasn't as high as Thrawn, whatever it is. I know Thrawn's just makeup and maybe a little CGI, but it's I think it's just a product of that. It was that hair thing that threw me off. They were too wiggly. They were too movement. It didn't look real.
Yeah,
Want to
so
hear an interesting fact? I think you're about to say what I'm about to say, Mike.
yeah, I figured out it's very funny.
She plays a 38-year-old, and she's 38 years old.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's like dead on in terms of the casting department.
Yeah.
The movie I was thinking of, by the way, was Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I couldn't not see her character in that.
But then I'm going to take it a step further and say that the makeup was an issue because looking at pictures of her, she doesn't like. I think Hera in the show, in Ahsoka, looks 49 years old, 48 years old. But looking at the actress, she doesn't. So I think it's the makeup.
Yeah, they might have done that intentionally, make it look like she's been through a lot with basically fighting a war for most of her life.
Maybe.
And it's another fun Mary Elizabeth Winstead thing. I just thought of 10 Cloverfield Lane, like thinking like the woman in the bunker is Harrison Dula. Basically, that's like the thought that came to my mind.
And then, as we all know, she's married to Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, she is. And we did not see him in this show.
No, we didn't see him. If we did, that would have been. I would have ran away with the character draft.
Yeah, let's go to Ezra here. When we get in live action, a brand new actor played by Iman Esfandi here. We get him in 3 episodes of the show here. Pete, in terms of bringing Ezra to live action life, how do you think they did?
I think they did great. I think the actor is spot on, just by looks too, the way they portrayed him. His actions were very Ezra-like from back in the animated series. I can overlook that he was leading a pack of hermit crabs, but we've talked about it to an extent of he was good with animals, and it makes sense that he's working with animals on this weird planet and this weird galaxy we don't know. So I think it was fantastic.
Yeah, Nick, I know the rumors on the internet before Iman Esfandi got cast were that they were going to get Mena Massoud play Aladdin in the live action film to play him. I think they nailed this. I think they got the right guy. He gets the vibes of Ezra and he portrays it very well.
I think he was perfect. Absolutely perfect. I thought Ezra's casting was one of the highlights of the show, and very excited and because we should be seeing more of him, and very happy that that's the decision that they made. Also, I thought it was going to be Keanu Reeves for a while, and it was not Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, we got to wait 2 shows for Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, I don't know what he's going to be, but we'll see.
Yeah, Nick D, I know you were a late Rebels convert. Did you like how they did Ezra in this show?
I did. I think at first I was a little bit unsure, but I rewatched the first episode with him and watching the end of it. I think I think it was perfect. I think he nailed it. I think he was just on. And then if you think about like, it's been 10 years, right? But like Ezra's been not really having any communication with anything other than hermit crabs. So it would make sense that like after all this time, everybody's grown up a little bit, but he's still kind of where he was 10 years ago, if that makes any sense. Yeah, no, I think the character did a perfect Ezra.
Yeah, I mean, Nick D, I could see this actor going up to somebody saying, "Hi, I'm Jabba the Hutt," and pulling it off.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
All right, let's go
I'm
on.
I'm surprised we didn't get that, and I feel like that would have confused a lot of people. Like if you didn't see it in the past and he just said that, you'd be like, "What is he talking about?"
Like if they had done that, Pete, you could have just had him just wink at the camera and break the 4th wall and no, they say that's for you Rebels fans.
I got to be honest with you. If they broke the 4th wall in this show, that would have ruined it for me. I got to be 100% honest. But I think they could have done it. I think it would have been a nod to Rebels, and people who watch Rebels would understand it. If not, they'd just be like, okay, that was random, whatever, and someone have to explain it to them. That's. I feel like I've had to explain this show to a lot of my non-Rebels friends, because they're like, I don't understand what this is. I don't understand what that is. So I feel like they still could have done it. I don't think there would have been a problem.
Yeah, I will also say it would be funny like if we got the random shout out Nick F of like, oh, like how's Lando doing? Freaking reference that he actually appeared in Rebels a couple of times.
That would have been nice.
Yeah. A little bit funnier. Speaking of another Rebels character here, we got to talk about our main guy Chopper here, Nick F. We didn't get a ton of Chopper in this show, but like I think the amount we got of him and like some of the stuff he was doing was perfect.
I think the amount was not enough, honestly.
I
But
said
what
not,
he did,
I said not. I didn't say what he got. We got enough of him. I said what we got of him was the perfect portrayal of this character.
okay, yeah, then I agree. I wish we had some more though of Chopper. Honestly, it was a little disappointing. But you're right. It was perfect amount. It was the perfect, like not the perfect amount, the perfect portrayal of Chopper. I mean, whoever was the actor for Chopper did a great job.
Yeah, yeah. He's very funny there, Nick D. Although I will say, like, I think his highlight was the first episode when he and Hera are arguing about why they can't shoot down the ship over the city. That's classic Chopper.
Yeah, that was like I think that's really the only classic Chopper we got.
Yeah.
Him going through
And
the thing and being like,
and
"Did you move my stuff?" You know.
And he cursed off the senator in wherever they were, the court.
Right. I think
Marshall.
that whole sequence of him being like, "Did you touch my stuff?" and she's like, "No, I didn't," because it's that good job of Chopper, like even without the subtitles, you can understand what Chopper's saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, him wanting to take down a ship over a civilian place and him being like, "Why not?" You know, that's classic Chopper.
Yeah, and Pete, I do think in terms of the Chopper, I'm upset we did not get to update the kill count. Like, I feel like we could have gotten one in there, would have been fun fan service here. But I did think the moment of him basically like cursing out Senator Giano when he says that droids can't present intelligence to court martial hearings was hilarious.
Yeah, Chopper comes in hot when you first get introduced to him, and it's great, and you're like, oh, we got classic Chopper back, and then we get a lull in the middle, and then we get the whole senator hearing or whatever for Hera, and he brings it back a little bit. I agree with everyone on the panel, and I think that we didn't get enough Chopper. I wish we got a little bit more, but still, it wasn't Chopper's show; it was Ahsoka's show. So whatever we got of him, I was very grateful for, and I enjoyed.
Yeah, I feel like with him, the problem was basically like once Hera sort of got sidelined, he went with her, and we didn't really get much of him in the back of the show.
Right, and it makes sense to force him into situations wouldn't have been good either. So I think they did what they could. He was prominent when he could be, and he took a back seat when he needed to, and I think that was fine.
All right, let's go to the end of the season here. Nick, did we not hear from you last week about how the season ended here? How do you feel about how they wrapped up season 1?
So initially, I was actually a little bit bummed out. I was super high on it, and then the last 2 episodes didn't do it for me. And you know, Nick stepped out for a second, but I think what I should have done was listen to what Nick was saying, which might go against what you were thinking, Mike. I should have gone into the last few episodes being like, we're not going to get a full resolution here. It's going to lead to either a next season or a movie. So I think with that mindset of being like, okay, there's more to come still, I think it did a really good job. I think it was a perfect setup of like, here's where everything's at now, and here's where it's potentially going to go. Now you got to wait. So I think in that regard, I ended up liking it more after the fact than I did initially.
Yeah, I think you're sort of coming around to where I was going into the finale. I sort of like said, okay, like there's no way they're going to resolve everything. We're not going to beat Thrawn in this show and have him come back later on. Like we're going to have a quote unquote incomplete story. At the same time, we're going to have a complete story because we got evolution from our main characters. We got some movement on the main plot line. We got some stuff going on. And like these characters are a place you can pick them up pretty easily and do whatever you want with them, whether it's the second season, whether they show up in Mandalorian, whether they're in the movie. Like there's ways you can get back to them.
Yeah. If you had them beat Thrawn that like at the end of the season, that would have been terrible. You know, it would have been like, really, you're bringing back this iconic guy for 2 episodes and then that's it. Like, you know, it makes sense that the seed has been planted now and there's something big is going to be happening in the future. And that did a really good job. Also, especially, I know we didn't really talk about, the mountains and everything at the end of it, but
we're getting there.
We're going to get there. Okay. So we'll talk about that when we get there.
Pete, now you had a week to sit on this. How do you feel about the finale? Anything change in your opinion?
No, I still think it's perfect. I mean, I've discussed this probably 10 times when it comes to these Star Wars shows on Disney Plus. We get 8-episode seasons with the exception of Andor, and Andor is a great show because it's not just 8 episodes and also because there's a season 2 and they let things flush out. We finally get a show that is 8 episodes long that we can flush out a storyline and it doesn't have to come quickly to a screeching halt by episode 8. And I feel like that's what happened with Mando season 3. That's what happened with Book of Boba Fett. That's what happened with other Obi-Wan Kenobi. There has been so many shows that have just had to come to a screeching halt and had to be rushed through because they need to have a resolution at episode 8. And I love that they finally said, it's okay that we don't finish this. We are setting something up, whether, like you had said, it's a season 2, if it's in Mandalorian, if it's in a movie, we're setting it up and it's okay to let things breathe. A lot of the great shows out there, they do not have a resolution at the season finale. They have 8 or 10 seasons of the show. We keep getting these snippets of Star Wars shows, and we're thinking it's going to be the best thing ever, but it's only 8 episodes. How good could it be when you have to start a storyline or multiple storylines on episode 1 and finish it on 8? And I think they did well in this. I think they finally said, we can't do that. We have to set things up. This is Ahsoka, and then we can move from there.
Nick F., it's sort of tangential discussion here. Like, did you see the article today from the Hollywood Reporter about like the issues that Marvel's been doing with their shows and have to sort of reformat what they want to do?
I saw the article. I did not read the article, but I gotta say, what Pete just said was the greatest monologue we've ever had on this podcast. I could not have been more correct. I completely agree with Pete.
Yeah, so I'll add to the discussion here with this article from Hollywood Reporter. It's they talk about like how they're basically rebooting the entire Daredevil show because they did not like the way it was turning out, and Marvel was sort of doing TV wrong because they were basically just treating it like, okay, like here's a writer and we're going to shoot the entire show on the fly and then we'll edit it, we'll fix it in post, which is a terrible way to run a show. Whereas they finally said, hey, we need showrunners. We need people to have a vision for developing this thing from beginning to end. And it's sort of like Star Wars has learned for the most part not to do that. Like Mando 1 and 2 had complete stories. They left you room for more. Andor did. There were issues with Boba and Obi-Wan and Mando 3, but for the most part, they get it. Marvel has not. So it goes to show you that like Star Wars seems, Nick has said many times before, seems like Star Wars is better equipped for television than Marvel is.
Sounds like it. I mean, we have a plan here, and so far the plan hasn't been derailed. So we're on our way. I mean, with more in relations to Marvel, I'm a little behind still. I'm caught up in the movies and all that, but I'm still behind in that I did not finish Secret Invasion.
I haven't either, by the way.
You guys aren't missing out. You're not missing out.
I heard it. Yeah, I heard it was terrible. I watched the first 2 episodes. I thought it was really good, but I'm not sure if does it get bad after that, or are the first 2 also supposed to be bad? And I liked it.
No, it started off good, and it goes downhill.
You can see the signs of decline in 3 already.
Yeah.
Well, then I will let you know when I get there. But again, I'm a little behind there, so I haven't seen any Loki yet. I know that's about 1 or 2 out so far. I'm not sure.
1's out.
1 is out. So yeah, I'll get there eventually. But I guess are in better shape than them. I know Nick, you do the Marvel Guys podcast, right? In addition to the Hyrule Guys that we do.
Yeah, we do the Marvel Guys too. Yeah, and there's, you know, though, but like I think the thing that Marvel does is like they're relying too much on the shows to then be like the in between the movies, but if you see the movies and you don't watch the shows, you're kind of lost. I'm hoping that like Star Wars at least like. I think what Star Wars does a little bit better is like the show is going somewhere. Whereas like a lot of the Marvel shows, like there's a season of Hawkeye, there's a season of Ms. Marvel, and then you're just kind of like, okay, but where's this all going? You know, it kind of seems like it's lost its way a little bit. So I'm hoping Star Wars is a little bit more guided, at least. Yeah.
Plus, I think the thing with Marvel, Nick D, also is I sort of feel like there are a lot of these shows. I feel like Falcon Winter Soldier was like this, Hawkeye's like this a bit. Like feels like, oh, here's a movie we can't make on the base here. It's going to chop it up into 6 pieces, and here you go. Here's a show. I feel like they sort of do that a lot.
They do that, and then they do the biggest thing that they do, which is like, well, this isn't the Bash Marvel show podcast. This is the Ahsoka show, right? But just to get it out, like Marvel always do the same thing. It's good, and then big CGI battle at the end. You know, like that's just the formula, and at least Star Wars can do more, hopefully.
All right, let's move on here to Balin, who is one of the big plot threads that's left hanging at the end of the season. We talked a lot last week about the Mortis gods illusions that he's on top of the statue of the father. He's looking at a beacon in the distance here. Obviously, unfortunately, Ray Stevenson passed away before the show released, so we have his storyline basically unresolved here before he passed away. So Pete, I know Star Wars is very, 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 very hesitant to recast anybody in any form after Solo, which I think is a mistake on their part. Do you think this is the time to finally break the ice and do this with Balin and sort of recast this character, continue the story?
I think they have to, because I think that would be such a waste of a character and a waste of the actor's legacy playing that character. I think he plays the actor plays such a great role with the probably the most, and I think I'm taking Nick F's words here, one of the most interesting characters in Star Wars. And to just let that character storyline, for lack of a better word, just die out is a disservice, I think, to how well it was played by the actor. I think they do need to recast, and they do need to explore this character for sure.
Nick F, you agree with us?
I do, and I think they will recast. Excuse me. I think they will recast. I think the reason they didn't want to recast and they're hesitant to recast other characters is because they're considered legacy characters. I don't think there's an issue with them recasting Ray Stevenson. I mean, it's a shame because I think he was the best character in the show. I think it was by a long shot, and it was the most interesting arc of any character, and there was more to come, and we can't have that just die on that hill. No pun intended.
Yeah, we can't leave him on the statue forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nick D, in terms of Balin here, I did like the sort of like, unlike the rest of the show, Balin sort of like is aware of what's going on in the big galaxy picture. Like he's the audience vessel where it's like, like the same thing happens over and over again. It's like Jedi win, Sith win, Jedi win, Sith win. Like I want to do something different and like reshape the whole thing. And he does that the wrong way, he has an interesting perspective.
That's what's so compelling about him, though. It's because he's, in a way, he is kind of the audience. He's like, how many times is it going to be this and then that and then this and that? He's like, there's got to be more to it. I don't know if should be a full on recast. I think you could maybe get away with like something happens to him in either the first episode or in the beginning of the movie, and now he's in a mask or something, or like, I mean, obviously you need to have a different actor step in, but I don't know if you want a full recast of him. But I don't know what you do then, because you can't full on Tarkin him for a whole movie or season. That would cost too much money and not look right, I don't know. I'm curious to see what they do with that. Also, I don't know if this is a bit of a hot take. The Solo movie, it was fine. It was a good movie. I don't know why everybody's so upset about it. It was a fine movie.
Yeah, I feel like we're gonna eventually get to again. If this Lando movie does show up eventually, I feel like I'm gonna have to go back and revisit that territory at some point.
Yeah, that's not an unpopular opinion around these parts.
It's fine.
We're Solo fans.
Yeah. It was fine.
It was not earth shattering, but it was not a disaster. Some people make it out to be. Disney.
I liked it. I thought it was a good movie.
All right, here. So next thing I want to discuss here real quick, and we're getting close to the end of our main topics here, but something P has wanted to discuss for a while here. Is this the best live action season of a Star Wars show we've gotten so far? Ahsoka 1. Pete, I know you're vocal on the yes category.
I'm very vocal in the yes category, but I'm curious to see what the two Nicks have to say.
Nick F, where you feel like this is the best live action season of a show we've gotten so far?
I think it's in third place, behind Andor and Mando 2.
So this is above Mando 1 in your book.
It is. I think Mando 1 comes in at fourth place, but yeah, this to me is up there, as high, pretty much as high as it gets, but not the tippity top.
Yeah, so I think in my book, I think it's in basically the same spot you are, right behind Andor. I put Mando 1, then this, then Mando 2. Nick D, how do you feel about this? Like, where would you put it right now if you had to make a list off the top of your head?
So off the top of my head, so that means don't think about it too much.
Yeah.
Without thinking about it too much, I would say it's probably number 2 behind season 1 and 2 of Mando, but like it's really, really close. It's like, ask me again in 2 days and I might have a different answer for you. I would put Andor higher, but I just feel like Andor doesn't need to be a Star Wars show, so that's why I think Andor's the best show, but I don't think it's the best Star Wars show. I think that goes to either Mando or Ahsoka very close behind Mando.
You're saying
And I
like,
also will. Oh, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
you're basically saying, Nick D, that like you feel like you could take the Andor like team and like put this in the Star Trek universe and still be a good show.
Yeah, or do what it doesn't even have to be Star Wars. It could just be like instead of spaceships making a train heist or something. I feel like it's a good show, just in general.
Yeah, for sure here. So that's a fun conversation we've had here. And Pete, I feel like you're definitely on the internet here. So I think you're on the edge of the curve here. I think you're leading it. So we'll see if you are proven right as time goes on here. But Nick D, I believe you have a question for us on the Twitch stream.
Yeah, so Bananarama on Twitch is asking, do you guys think they did a good job giving the audience enough if they've never seen Rebels? Like, was there enough there?
Nick, how do you feel about that?
I originally thought no. Like when we first started the show, I remember saying this is a problem. Oh, what are we going to do? All this. But my answer is yes, because people that I've spoken to who have not seen Rebels have very minimal questions. The only thing I'm really got from people, like they were legitimately confused about. So first off, if they've never seen anything, their first question always is, how did he have an apprentice if she wasn't in the movies? And I'm like, well, I mean, that's like that question is over 10 years old. That's not a question they needed to answer in the show. But the only question I'm getting from people, like take my brother for example, who understands Ahsoka existed prior to this show. He didn't know anything about her specifically, but he understands she was there. Now she's not there, whatever. The only question they had was, what is the world between worlds? Mm-hmm. And then of course the ending with Balin on the statue, they had no idea. But that wasn't a question that went over their head.
Yeah. Yeah,
so I think to answer your question, the only negative or the only thing missing is some sort of explanation on what the world between worlds is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for sure. I think they did a pretty good job. I was worried in the premiere when we're having, Ryder Azadi's there and Jai Kell's there. I'm like, oh, like we're having all these Easter eggs every episode. I have to explain to the audience like who like random character from Rebels X is, but they sort of like did a good job sort of like showing, not telling, like who these main characters are and some of their motivations and like dropping dialogue in that was helpful. I think they did a good enough job keeping the Rebels people who have not watched it like up to date on like what you should know here. Although I do think what I do think they could have explained better is like how exactly Thrawn and Ezra ended up in this other galaxy. They didn't really do a great job on that from what I could recall.
My answer to this is twofold. I think that they did a good job in the sense of they were able to make a show that people that haven't watched Rebels will be able to understand, enjoy, and watch, enjoy, and possibly love. But I don't think they did very well. On top of what you said, Mike, is people who didn't watch Rebels don't know how they got to this point, right? Not just the how they got to a different galaxy. Why does it matter that Thrawn is such like what no one knows the 4 seasons worth of stuff. Kanan Jarrus, yes, he's the old master, but what is the significance, right? All these different things that really, I think, elevate this show for people that have watched Rebels is kind of put by the wayside a little bit because A, you don't have much time to do it, right? So I get it. But also, too, you're trying to attract new fans, so you can't make it that heavy when it comes to knowing stuff. So I think it's a twofold answer there. I think they made a great show for someone who has not watched Rebels to watch and love and enjoy, but I think that creates a standalone show that doesn't connect to Rebels that much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a fair point because I do think like they obviously had their work cut out for them. I think it's a very tough needle to thread, Nick F, in terms of like you're trying to appease us who've seen every season of the show, of every Rebels episode. We can tell you like backwards and forwards. Like we can go into like a diatribe on who Ryder Azadi is and his history with Ezra's parents, or whereas like your brother hasn't seen any of it. It's like, oh, like that's just the mayor. Okay, cool. So it just like makes sense.
Yeah, the only thing that wasn't explained that needed to be was the world between worlds. But then again, I think explaining it kind of ruins the mystery. So it's almost done on purpose to make you ask your friends and or go on the internet and research it yourself.
Yep. So maybe we'll inspire people to go to Rebels here, but we'll get now to our trackers here. We'll update all of them and sort of reset where we ended the season on them. We had 3 that did not hit, 7 did. So we'll reset the damage here. And
which ones didn't hit?
We'll start off with the most obvious one that never hits, and we do it every show. Nick F, still no Hondo.
God.
It's a damn shame.
Yeah.
It really is.
stuck on 18 Hondos. I'm still calling my shot that Skeleton Crew's the spot for a Hondo Onaka live action debut. He's got to get in some shenanigans with these children.
I mean, yeah, it has to happen, right? By the way, I'll be seeing Hondo next week.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, I'll be seeing him in person.
I'll be seeing Hondo in person in a few weeks.
Yeah.
I'm going on the 20th.
Nice. So next up here, Bo-Katan was also a track we put in. That did not hit all. So that's still a 21 after Mandalorian season 3, Pete.
I think that was a long shot. I think that was a cool one to hope for. But I still think it was a bit of a long shot.
Yep. Nick D, as you mentioned last week, live action trackers. We had 8 live action cameos here. Our probably Carson Tava, who won Nick the Character Draft at 3 times, Anakin Skywalker 4 times, and C-3PO. So 8 live action cameos.
I think Carson Tava was like the Debo Samuel of a few years ago. You know, nobody drafted him earlier than the 7th round, but he ended up being the guy, you know?
Yeah, Nick D, another Marvel reference. He's the Claire Temple of this Star Wars universe. He just shows up in everything.
Yeah, I guess he's going to be I wonder if Carson Tava is a higher draft pick in seasons to come, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, maybe he's the number 1 pick in Skeleton Crew.
Maybe.
All right, next up here, Nick F. Animated cameos. We had 13 total here from, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 characters here. And I will say here, the biggest surprise, though, was getting a Resistance character in live action. It's not something I had on my board.
No, me either. That is not something we had on our board for sure.
Yeah, so that's animated cameos here. Pete, we went to 9 planets over the course of the season here. So we're planning an episode.
I think that's fantastic. I think Star Wars is famous for doing a bunch of planets, different systems, and I think they did that perfectly within 8 episodes.
Yeah. Nick D is the third one that did not update here. Chopper didn't kill anyone. We're still on 50,021 kills.
I thought he for sure he would get at least a kill, something like even if it not even like a human kill, like an animal or something that he just kind of like shocks, you know. But no, he didn't get any Chopper kills.
Or he just throws a droid to a ditch.
Something, yeah, exactly, anything.
Yeah, we didn't get any of that one, so that's unfortunate here. Nick F. We had 7 classic lines, so we had almost just under 1 an episode.
Good. That's good. Or is that bad?
I think it's fine.
Is that a tracker that we want to be lower, or is that a tracker we want to be higher? I don't know.
I think lower is better.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you.
Probably right about where it is. Feels right.
Like once an episode, we can give like a little wink to the audience. I think it's fine. I think if you're trying to if we're doing it going to this is the way territory with Mandalorian, then I think you've gone too far.
Agreed.
Next up here, Pete. The lightsabers turned on 36 times over the course of this show, which makes sense with all these lightsaber wielding characters.
It was great. It didn't feel overdone, right? To me, I don't know how you guys feel, but I felt like it was the perfect amount. I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, that worked out pretty nice. About like basically 9 an episode, it looks like.
Did Ahsoka's when she lights 2 at once, was that 1 or 2?
It depends how if she turned them both on at the same time, it's once. If you turn them on separately, it's twice.
Okay.
All right. Next up here, lightsaber duels. We had 10 over the course of the season, Nick. D.
10 duels. Oh, 10 duels. But that wasn't for me.
I felt like there was more, right, than just 10 duels, but I guess no, because just firing up the lightsaber doesn't necessarily mean it's going to turn into a duel, right? It could just be. I wish there was more. I think it was good. I think the choreography was better in this than it's been in other things. Still not the same level as, like prequel level choreography, but I think it was good still.
Yeah, so to reset what we had in that department here, we had Sabine and Shin 3 separate times. We had Ahsoka and Marok twice, Ahsoka and Balin twice, Ahsoka and Anakin twice, and Ahsoka and Morgan the last episode.
Okay.
So they kept the same dueling partners most of the time.
That's good. He leaves a little rivalry,
Yeah, and last but not least here, Nick F., we had 3 Nice Old Republic references from the first episode, sort of carried through the whole season with the star map and the HK droid, like assassin droid. We had those things sort of carried through, but 3 total references.
So I find that interesting. You went to me and Knights of the Old Republic.
Yes.
Speaking of video games, Nick D, I did pick up Jedi Survivor again and got quite far.
Oh, okay. Did you get to our favorite character yet?
I am literally about to meet him, and I saved the game.
Cool.
Yeah, I told Nick F to call me as soon as he meets Rick.
It's gonna be very hyped up for him. I hope it lives up to the expectation.
Yeah, that's. I'm starting to think it's not going to live up because it's been so hyped up. But I can tell I'm right there, and I sometimes if I get stuck, I look at a guide, and I think I saw him on the next page. So I think I'm right there.
All right, so that's all our trackers, and now we're gonna do the MVP board for the season here. So we're gonna go review that and see anything you feel needs to be adjusted here. So here's where we stood. Lord Bane was the most valuable character in Ahsoka. He was +6 on the board. Grand Admiral Thrawn and Ahsoka tied for second at +4. Then we have +2 party of Anakin Skywalker, Hera, Ezra, and Huyang. Chopper and Sabine round out the positives +1. -1s, Morgan Elsbeth, Ensign Rick, Marak, Enoch, all at -1. -2s, Shin Hati, Min Weaver, and Captain Hale from the Mirror and Mon Mothma. Our favorite senator, Giano, -3. The Pretty and Biker Gang, -4. And the New Republic, the LVP of the show, at -5 here. So anybody see anything glaring they want to add or subtract a point from?
Nothing that I want to add or subtract a point from. I mean, Shin Hati at -2 is a crime. She's a great character, but the Senator and the New Republic are kind of like, which one do I vote for? So it's really like -8 when you combine them. And obviously, if you add -3, -5, it's -8. But like, there were a lot of us going back and forth between the two because we didn't know which one to pick. So that's almost like one character -8 is clear LVP of the show.
Yeah, P, anything on the board?
I agree with Nick. I think I think this is pretty spot on, and you can probably combine the Senator and the New Republic too.
Yeah, Nick D, seeing the full board, like, how do you feel about it?
Honestly, I feel like the MVPs. I think that feels about right. I was thinking what you've been saying like all season, where you're like, man, I just wish it wasn't the one episode where everybody dunks on one guy and now they're on the bottom. But even that being said, the New Republic being at the bottom, that still feels about right. Who gave Enoch the -1?
That was me.
What did he do to deserve the -1?
Because he's pretty much usually just stands there, doesn't fight or anything.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, here. When you say it like that, yeah.
He's the Captain Phasma of this era of Star Wars.
Yeah, kind of. No, I think overall this board, yeah, it feels about right.
Yeah, original trilogy Boba Fett, another good example of that. Somebody looks cool, doesn't do much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll also add here, I think the Pretty and Biker Gang being almost the LVP of the show is also hilarious.
They were pretty bad though.
They were bad. I just feel that Shin Hati is not properly placed here.
Yeah, she was. I agree with you. I think she was. I mean, obviously, the episodes she was written to mess things up, but as a character, she was one of the better characters.
All right, so now something we've been waiting for the whole season here. We're going to reveal the episode grades of
my
something we have after Boba Fett, we changed this, so we're not reacting to each episode. So here is where we're going. We have a tie at the top here, which I'm going to let Nick D break, so he didn't have a vote in either episode, but we're going to go to, here's what we got. Tie at the top, Part 4, Fallen Jedi, and Part 5, Shadow Warrior, both at 10s. Then we have Part 1, Master and Apprentice, in third at 9.67. Number 4, Part 2, Toil and Trouble, 9.33, the other half of the premiere. Number 5 is Part 6, Far, Far Away, 8.5. That's the Ezra and Thrawn debut episode. Number 6 is our finale, The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlock, 8.17. Number 7 is Part 3, Time to Fly, which is the episode Nick D came on to recap this, 8.13. And then Part 7, Dreams and Madness, the lowest that was on the board, at 6.75. So that's our ratings here. So any reaction, Nick, after what we have on the board?
Looking at this list and remembering the episodes in my head, I'm like, to me, maybe some of us will disagree if they're watching live or listening in the future, but I think this is spot on.
Yeah, it speaks to the quality of the show, P2, that our lowest episode is a 675.
Yeah, for sure. This, like Nick F said, I think this looks correct. I don't really see any issue with it.
All right, so Nick D, now you have an important vote to make here because you're going to break the tie. Like, which episode do you like better, Part 4 or Part 5?
Oh, God, so much pressure. Remind me again, because I'm terrible with numbers and names. Give me, like, the quick one sentence, what happened in 4 and what happened in 5.
I'll handle this. 5 was the World Between Worlds.
Okay.
with Anakin and going into the Clone Wars and whatnot. And 4 was the episode prior when Ahsoka lost
Ooh.
to Balin and fell in the water, and
Mm.
the others went into hyperspace, including Sabine.
Sabine gives Balin the map.
Right.
Right. Okay. Both great episodes. If you're leaving this up to me, which you guys are, which I was not mentally prepared for, um, I think Shadow Warrior was the best one. I think that whole sequence going back in time, young Ahsoka, younger Anakin. I think that was just like I almost got a little emotional watching that. So that's I would give my vote to part 5.
All right, so Shadow Warrior, the best episode of Ahsoka, according to our show. So I think it's something the audience get behind on the internet.
If not, don't at me. I'm just a guest on the show.
Yeah, so that's the episode rankings here. And the last question for us here, we want to discuss here. We obviously have discussed that potentially, Nick mentioned this news, that we could have a season 2 of Ahsoka here. So, Pete, what do you think a season 2 could look like?
I think a season 2 is probably the inverse of season 1, trying to get Sabine and Ahsoka back from where Ezra was. I think a season 2 and possibly a season 3 will be needed if you want to try to round this story out without letting it bleed into other shows or a movie. But I think it would honestly, and this may hurt a season 2. It might just be the inverse of, okay, Ahsoka and Sabine's now trapped. What do we do?
Nick F, what do you want to add to season 2? What do you think else we could do?
I don't really know, honestly. I think like it just Pete said, it would be like an inverse, and maybe you have Thrawn do something with the galaxy, in that really showing that he's back to everyone. So like wherever Han Solo is in this world, wherever Chewie is in this point in time, that they know, oh, Thrawn's here, and they probably know who he is, I would assume.
Yeah, I assume Leia told them.
Yeah, so it's here like, oh my God, this guy's back. This is a problem. This is a big deal. That would be nice.
Nick D, I know like you want to talk about the Mortis stuff here. You feel like it's something that definitely get thrown into a season 2.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that has to get explored more into it. That's Balin's whole thing. To abandon that would abandon maybe the best part of season 1. I'm curious what you guys think. Do you think that Thrawn eventually will get taken down, but the vacuum that he leaves kind of brings the First Order in, or do you think Thrawn will like directly lead to the First Order? You know what I mean? How do you think they handle that?
Pete, you want to weigh in on that?
I think it'd be foolish if they don't let Thrawn lead directly to the First Order. I think it would be a waste of a character. But also, too, I think it would just be... It would be too confusing. Who would be ready to just start up another empire, right? I feel like Thrawn is the best equipped right now, as we saw in Ahsoka. So I think the smartest answer to that would be Thrawn creates the First Order, and then something happens to him, if that's the case.
Yeah, Nick, all right, my gut would be sort of like that Thrawn basically creates the army, like he's doing all this stuff, he leads a big fight, they lose, he basically dies, or like his ship explodes, and then the rest of them, the Shadow Council group, sort of run off to the unknown regions, sort of build on his battle plan, then they create the First Order. That'd be my hunch.
So we do kind of have some sort of canon explanation on how the First Order comes to be. Now they can always kind of like, it's pretty vague, and I guess they could bring more into it, but it says that there was a political gridlock in the New Republic in 29 ABY, which is 20 years later from where we are now, and some systems left the Republic and formed the First Order. But I think that they had to combine with some sort of Imperial remnant in order to do that. So maybe the title First Order, that's kind of already been established how that came to be, but then you can kind of have Imperial remnants, Thrawn's forces kind of be the baseline for what we know as the First Order in a way.
Yeah.
So we will see.
Yeah, I think to add to the season 2 discussion here, I think I could see 3 very clear storylines of what's going on here. I think we're going to spend time on Peridia exploring the Mortis stuff, with maybe Balin coming into conflict with Ahsoka and Sabine about this. I know that could be definitely an angle here. Ezra reintegrating into the galaxy and sort of warning like, oh, Thrawn is back. Here's what we got to do to stop him. And then I think it's more fun to have Thrawn lurking in the background, doing things like sort of like behind the scenes, trying to like set himself up for stuff. And then sort of at the end of this, I feel like if we're going to lead into the Mando movie with this, they get Ahsoka and Sabine back at the end of the season. Thrawn wants a big attack, basically. I feel like that could be a way you go for season 2, propel you forward.
Yeah.
I think I agree. Is now a good time, or is there gonna be another time for me to voice the frustration I had with the show?
Sure. I think that could be a final thought.
Oh, it's small. It's small. It's not like a large thing where it's like this is not going to be one of those clips we put on social media. It's a small thing. I just feel that we were led to believe for like 5.5 years that Ezra and Thrawn were in some distant galaxy. Who knows where they are? And they were, but like it just kind of seemed like another planet. It just seemed like, oh, they were just a little further away than we thought. I thought there was going to be like a completely different galaxy where up is down and right is left. Like everything was going to be different, and like it was maybe like an alternate universe type thing where there'd be another Anakin Skywalker or something like, or something. Not necessarily all these things, but something different. Like ends up just being, yeah, they were really far.
I mean, to be fair, Nick F. I mean, there's a clip going around Twitter after the finale, after Ezra returned, where a Dave Filoni celebration last year, saying like, being asked like, "Do you want to know where Ezra is?" And he literally says he's far, far, far away. So basically, told you without telling you where he was.
But they still say it's a distant galaxy, but it's like
just very far.
Who's to say they can't just be in our galaxy? Like it could have been all along. I thought like distant galaxy to me means something different than just far away.
Well, I guess that's what they mean. It's literally just far, far away.
Yeah, and that's all. That was a little disappointing.
All right, so that's it for us this week. Next week here, we're gonna have some fun on the podcast here, Pete. Our good friend Dan DiMartini is coming on with us. We're going to do a little Ask Me Anything here. It's sort of a palate cleanser here. It's going to get some of our opinions on some wide-ranging Star Wars topics. It'll be a fun discussion here.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited for that. It's going to be a good one. Make sure you're subscribed because it's not going to be on the regular feed. You got to be subscribed.
It's not just on the suffering feed. All these have not. This one's not even there.
That's right. I think that this episode or next episode will do a lot better if you do not let us know what's going to be asked prior.
I'm not going to. I'm going to just make the graphics.
I think that's going to really be better to have this as a what's what I'm looking for.
Mystery.
On the spot kind of answer.
Yeah. So because I'm working with Dan on the questions here. So like, I'm going to like.
So you'll know them.
I'll know them. I'm not going to do too much work on them apart from making the graphics.
But you won't tell us the questions.
No, I will not.
Perfect.
That's coming up next week here. And also, people, if you want to leave some questions we could look to address in the episode, you can do that on social media here. And Nick Fred, how can they do that?
You can follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Threads, and TikTok. Oh, I didn't even say where. At Sky Guys Podcast.
On all those platforms here. So you want to leave
right.
a question, you can do that as well. Nick D, thanks for coming on. We'll have fun talking with you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I want to show everybody, for the visual audience, how easy it is. See, look. You just... Oh, my screen turned off. Sky Guys Podcast. You just press that button right there. You're followed.
And you give a 5-star review when eligible.
And a 5-star review. It's that easy. It's that simple.
Yep. So once again, if people want to follow your Twitch stuff, how can they do that?
Oh yeah. So go to twitch.tv/The Recovery Room. For the month of October, I am playing only horror games, and I don't like scary things, so it's fun for some people, not for me. So come hang out there.
If you hang out there with Nick D, Pete, if you want to follow you on social media, how can they do that?
At Consy29, CONSY29 on Twitter, and also give AP Tyler 308 from Reddit a follow. They created this cool background that I use all the time, so I want to give them a shout out. Yep,
Nick already gave out the social media for us. So I'm gonna tell you follow me on social media. mphillips331. It's MPHILIPS331. This week we're Just on the Suffering podcast. It'll be interesting to Pete and Nick D that we had the hockey preview episode out this week, so you want to check that out. It's definitely some fun.
Hey, I like hockey.
Just so everyone knows, Bedard scored his first goal tonight against the Bruins. So 1 point a game so far for him.
Yeah, well, we talked a little bit about like a lot of the local stuff on that podcast. So a lot of Rangers, Islanders, Devils talk on that episode. You want to check that out on Just on the Suffering here. That's it for us here. We'll be back next week. You can ask us anything you want. Send in your questions if you like. We'll have some ready to go. Until then, may the force be with you.